Well, at one stage, Germany was working closely with Russia to build a gas pipeline, but how things have changed. The two countries are now very much working against each other as Germany accuses Russia of pushing up energy prices. For more, we're joined by Ben Oquist from the Australia Institute. How are you today, Ben? Good to have you back.
Thanks, Adrian. Nice to be with you.
So firstly, Germany has accused Russia of trying to rise these energy prices. Well, what's behind this accusation exactly?
Well, Gazprom, the big state-controlled gas giant, Russian gas giant, has limited the amount of gas going to Germany. It's basically halved it to 70 million cubic metres per day. Now, Russia says it's doing this for technical reasons, but I think Germany's right. It believes it's for political reasons, and it's an attempt to drive prices up. And as you said, Germany in the past had plans to be much more engaged with Russian oil and gas, but the crisis in Ukraine has really sped up the debate about getting off Russian oil and gas, because we know the Russian war machine has been fed by and funded by coal and gas industries, and that's making Europeans and the Germans very wary about supporting it any further. But it's also highlighting, how beholden countries' energy security is to Russia and to fossil fuels in generally. So there's now a push to do exactly the opposite for those two reasons. So that people aren't funding the Russian war machine and not being beholden to a high and skyrocketing high fossil fuel prices. And it's a global debate that's affecting Australia too. And how to get off fossil fuels so you're not dependent upon them for environmental reasons, of course, but for security and economic reasons as well. And that's the debate that's raging in Germany, and Russians trying to put the squeeze on Germany and hike up prices.
So what sort of impact are you seeing that this is having in particular on families, on individuals, on businesses at the moment, day to day?
Yeah, well, it's making the costs of energy much higher for business, reducing productivity, putting jobs at risk, and for consumers, making energy prices much higher at home for heating, cooking, all sorts of things. And that's a bad outcome for individuals, and it's a bad outcome for the economy. And we're seeing similar debates play out in Australia too. For a long time, we'd been told that moving to renewables was going to put our electricity grid at risk. It was going to drive up prices, and that fossil fuels, whether it's coal or oil or gas, were dependable, reliable, and essentially modest in price. But globally and in Australia, the tide has been turned, and we're now seeing that we can't rely upon coal and gas. Are unreliable, not just unreliable, but super expensive. And you're really beholden to global fluctuations. Australians are paying the price for what's going on in the Ukraine, and huge increases in prices, in particular in gas, because we're beholden to the export market. So too in Europe. And the only solution is essentially to get off fossil fuels and get into renewables faster. So far from renewables being the problem, everybody's now realising they're the solution, and how we can speed up that transition is the task at hand. Now, of course, it's difficult. You can't do it overnight, and you need a lot more investment, in particular in Australia, in storage, so you can make the grid reliable. And that's probably been the big public policy failure. Not enough investment has been driven by governments into storage to make renewables the dependable source of power that they can be.
So let's focus more on Australia as an example. Of course, we've just moved from the Liberal government over to the Labor government. What's Anthony Albanese's position, and what's your optimism in terms of the market, the population of Australia really wanting to make changes over coming years? Where do you think this can go?
Well, Australia is in the middle of a huge energy crisis. We're part of this global story that's skyrocketing fossil fuel prices, creating essentially a gas-led catastrophe. In Australia, we heard a long time on the previous government that we're going to have a gas-fired recovery, but we've had the extraordinary situation in Australia that essentially the electricity market has had to be suspended, largely because of the skyrocketing cost of gas prices and the unreliability of the coal and gas fleet. And that is leading to a big debate in Australia about how to get off fossil fuels. You're right, there's a new government. It's inherited an energy crisis and a mess that's leading to the suspension of the electricity market. And they're facing a gas-led catastrophe. And how Australia can best move to get off gas and get off coal is the debate at hand. Yes, there is more political will, but political will is not enough. We need the government intervention to build out the storage that's going to allow renewables to come online.
It's going to be very interesting to watch Anthony Albanese, the new Prime Minister of Australia, and see how he goes about it. Ben Oquist, always appreciate your time. Thanks again.
Thanks for the opportunity, Adrian.